put something together that kind of simplifies after a couple years of doing this together through Australia, through the US. We took all the questions that were asked and we put together something and simplified it. And again, we'll be here as long as you want it. We answered questions 4 hours last night, plus what we talked about during training. We call this the 10 Commandments of Gainz. And we feel that if you just take home at least one of these commandments, it will greatly improve not only your life, but your gains and everything around us. So without further ado, I'd like to kick off the first commandment to Doug Miller.
Before we get started, guys, there's some seats over here if you want to come on in. You don't have to stand outside. So the first commandment, and again, these commandments will probably be filled with a bunch of, things that sound like cliches and trademarks. Well, some of them are trademarked, but we really do believe in all of these, and they're very much related to all the questions that we've received over the years of doing this. So the first one is crush it. Again, kind of cliche, but what I mean by that is intensity really separates. A lot of times in these seminars, we get asked the question, somebody raises their hand, a young guy usually, I'm 19, 20 years old, what advice can you give me? What is that?
It's some Australian butterfly.
Yeah, that's... what advice can you give me, to help me be successful? And it's usually in bodybuilding. And we'll just say bodybuilding, but I don't mean necessarily competitive bodybuilding. I mean, everyone here is in health and fitness and are trying to improve their physique. So when I say bodybuilding, that's what I mean. And so, through the years, I probably, if you asked me this question maybe 10 years ago, I would say, you asked me what's the most important thing, I would probably have said diet. You hear the thing, diet is 90% of it. I really don't believe that. At the end of the day, most all of you know how to diet. You know what foods you should be eating, or you should be. You know how to count macros. You know what a carb is. You know what protein is. You know what fat is. And at the end of the day, it's really not that complicated. Most people, most bodybuilders, whether they're successful or not, generally eat the same way. Training, most of you know how to train. You know how to squat, bench, and deadlift. You know the basics. But what really separates the mediocre from the great, and that's intensity. When we go to these training sessions, we're not the greatest bodybuilders in the world, but we work really hard and we've pushed our, genetic limits pretty far. And all three of us train the same way: high volume, high intensity. And so what we say to people is like, when you go to the gym, are you just going to the gym to go through the motions? Are you actually going there to make progress? And to be honest, with yourself, most people will say, I'm just trying to get it in, and that's really, if you want to push your genetic limit to the, your potential to the limit, that's not going to work. When you go there, are you really fully exhausting yourself? Are you really, going to failure? And a lot of people that we train with, like one guy that Sean was training with last night, his PR on deadlifts was 315. I don't know what that is in kilos, but 315 pounds.
It's like 140.
140. Yeah, something like for one, or 3 plates on the side, whatever those plates are, for 1 rep. When he was training with us and we were in his face yelling at him, he got 7 reps. That's ridiculous. That just shows you how mental the game is, and that's just one example. We've had people like that all week long, really for the past 2 weeks.
It's been crazy.
Setting new PRs. We've even set new PRs this week, just feeding off of you guys setting PRs. So, really think about that. When you're going to the gym, are you going there to make progress? Is your intensity really there? When you look at the greats, it's that, that crazy eye that they get right before their set. Are they really putting it in every set and really going as far as they can?
And that falls right into commandment number 2, which is another tagline, but it's not a game. You know what? And I'm gonna actually start out with this. Like my brother, who's also an IFPA pro bodybuilder, he was one of those guys. Now he's a very successful senior VP for a digital marketing firm. One of the best in his business. He works insane hours. He has many people under him. He's running an entire Chicago office. And he said, you know what? What the hell is going to happen in about 60 to 90 minutes that will ruin your life? What cannot, be pushed to the side and ignored for 60 to 90 minutes? Obviously, if someone calls you in the hospital, pick it up. Okay, I get it. But when you're in the gym, realize it's not a game. Get it done. Get at it. When you're intense and you're focused on your set. And I always look back to when I trained with Dorian Yates. He'd joke around. He'd point at girls' asses on the treadmill. It was a great time. But once he got in the seat and he was ready for that set, his eyes would gloss over. In fact, yesterday when Doug hit 5 plates on deadlifts for 874 reps, maybe a little bit less, but it seemed like that many. It probably felt like that many too. Or the other day when I was doing bench press with 3 plates and we got over, was it 25 or whatever? 29, but the last 4 reps were crap. But at the end of the day, you get that intensity, you focus in on your set, and you get it, and the same thing applies to diet. And those are the things you need to take seriously. And again, these 10 commandments, they go even further into that, but for this commandment, we're looking at diet and training. And when you're in the gym, when you are training, take it seriously. You have 60 to 90 minutes to get as much in as possible, and again, to crush it in the gym. So take that shit seriously, realize it's not a game. And again, I don't know, you guys have the stock market out here, you have ways to invest your money. Would you invest in a stock that isn't going to appreciate on the dollar? Would you invest in something that's either going to depreciate or stay the same? No, you're investing 60 to 90 minutes of your time. That's opportunity cost. That's some shit. You could be doing other things to make money or to make progress in your life, but you chose to spend that time in the gym. Are you going to waste those 60 to 90 minutes just stagnant? Just the same? Maintaining? What the fuck is the word maintaining? I don't want to maintain, I want to improve. So when you're in the gym, realize you have an hour to improve. And like Doug said, get that crazy eye and get it done. And that goes in perfectly.
No, hold on. I have a little bit more to add.
So what Sean's going to add to this? I have to finish.
Yeah, I have a little more to add to that. If you go back and look at that example of the guy I trained with last night, whose previous 1 rep max was 315 pounds, 140 kilos, he's not a new lifter. He'd been lifting for 3-4 years, and 2 years seriously, very consistently. That means that he has been consistently leaving about 70% of his potential on the table in his deadlifts. In the most, arguably the most important overall compound lift, targeting every part of the body. I can only imagine if we train chest, shoulders, quads, biceps, triceps, any other part of the body, that he's leaving money on the table. And when we talk, sometimes when we train with Mike Rashid, we have this little saying, get that fucking money, get your money. We're talking about money on the table that you can go get, like results that you can get just by grabbing it. And if you leave it there and you are capable of it, that sucks. That's what Marc's talking about, getting the most return on your investment. You're already there. Go get it, get all that money. Don't leave any of it. Don't leave any of those reps on the table. Get them all. And Doug always says this, because Doug does like 87 reps per set. And he always says, why am I going to do 10 reps if I can do 20? I don't have to do 10 reps just because everyone's doing 10 reps.
Every person I've trained with in these last 2 weeks in Australia has asked, how many reps on this set? I said, till I'm done. If I have another 2 in the tank, I'm not leaving that shit on the table.
And we might have a target rep range.
Yeah.
But if you blow past it, it's cool. Don't hold yourself back.
Well, that's why my bench press, because if you remember, I said I'm gonna get 22 reps. I ended up getting 26, which is why I had to go up to 30. So if you got more in the tank, do it. Always aim higher. And Mike sounds much cooler than Sean when he said, get your money.
Yeah.
You sound very...
He's black, so.
Yeah, black guys can say it much cooler than Sean.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, that goes now to commandment number 3, which is to be organic as fuck. And when we say that, we're not talking about buying locally grown or specifically non-GMO food, although those things are great if you can. We're talking about basing the majority of your diet on the quote-unquote bro foods, the nutrient-dense whole foods that should make up the majority of a healthy diet. With the rise of if it fits your macros and Instagram, it seems like a race oftentimes to eat the shittiest food possible, the Pop-Tart and peanut butter sandwiches, and etc. You don't have to eat this way, nor should you eat this way if you're interested in overall health and wellness in the long run, because although we all recognize and concede that due to the law of thermodynamics, if you eat the right amount of carbs, protein, and fat, you can lose body fat or gain weight, your overall health and wellness will not be optimal because you will be leaving micronutrients on the table if you get all your fat in one meal from McDonald's and then eat ketchup and Pop-Tarts the rest of the day. That's not the best way to structure a plan for the long run. It's basically its own form of an eating disorder, really, to have a large meal with all of your fat and carbs, and then have egg whites and protein shakes the rest of the day. That's not the way we want you guys to be structuring your diet, in the sense of being able to maintain it as part of a healthy, productive lifestyle.
So that ties right in to commandment number 4, which is plan it and don't track it. So what we mean by that is that you guys know what he said, if and fit your macros. You guys, the IIFYM, you guys are familiar with that, right? So at the end of the day, we're all IIFYM. It's just the 3 of us, we choose to eat bro foods, those whole, those foods that are organic as fuck, as Sean would say. And we really, how we do this is we basically plan ahead. You'll see people carrying around and, using MyFitnessPal or some other phone app, which is a great app. But when we use it, like if I'm getting ready for a show, I will use it to plan and not track. So you see people going through the day like, oh, I'm gonna, have a granola bar for breakfast, type it in. I'm gonna scan this barcode, I'm gonna type it in. End of the day, they have all these macros left over and they eat 15 packets of ketchup and a fucking Pop-Tart. Like that does not, that is not ideal, right?
Who does that? I've seen, I have read dumb shit like that, seriously.
And that's not optimal, especially if, all 3 of us believe pretty strongly in nutrient timing, and there are certain periods of time, where it's better to have, bigger meals, more carbs, more protein and such. But if you're just going along your day and filling up your macros and tracking it as you go, that is not ideal at all. So plan ahead. Even when you're traveling, think about, you're going to be stuck at the airport and you're not going to have food. What are the options, right? There's a good chance you can get a dry chicken breast, a chicken breast cooked dry at one of the fast food places in an airport. So just think about that. Plan ahead. Set yourself up to be successful. If you're just going along and tracking it, your diet's going to be less than ideal for sure.
And what's funny is I find that it's actually more of a hindrance. See, I've tried it, and I found that it literally, if you're like sitting there after a meal, like tracking it and this and that, and I found it actually takes more time than planning. Planning's cool. You got it, you weigh it, you're good, you're gone. You're done in about 10, 15 minutes. I bet you accumulate about an hour, seriously, of going like, okay, how much was that? What was that? And then at the end of the day, you're figuring out, oh, I got this left, and it's just a pain in the ass. Just utilize, at the end of the day, it's all about adherence, and we'll get into that more, but if you can't adhere to a program, and I really don't see y'all for the next 10, 20 years being able to whip out your phone at the end of every meal or at the beginning of every meal and figure out your macros. That's why planning things is the best way. What is it? You don't plan to fail, you fail to plan? That goes perfect with this.
That transitions to commandment number 5, which is our first mention of what this room is filled with, and that is that we make supplements, not substitutes. And that is to say that everything that we make, every product that we make, goes hand in hand with the hard work and proper planning of a solid nutrition plan and a badass workout plan. If you're not putting in the work in those 2 areas, the supplements won't do anything for you. They will never replace those 2 categories. And we want to say that firmly as our first mention of these products, because we feel that we truly have between us the best, the coolest, the most innovative, the most cutting edge products on the entire market. But as cool as they are, they're not going to be effective until you've got those 2 things down. And so if you try and plug them in as a hole in a leaky ship, it won't work that way. They're not Band-Aids that can cover up deficiencies. They won't close that wound that you have where you just eat like shit or you don't work out very hard. You have to do those things right first. And we recommend that if you don't know how to eat properly currently or train properly, spend the money on that. Get someone to help you, do the research, put in the time, figure out how to manage those 2 variables before you start investing in a lot of different supplements, waiting for them to do the work. Because if you could be big from just taking supplements, I'd be like 450 pounds. And it's not working like that. So you gotta figure out a plan that you can train with to get better consistently over time, a diet you can manage and you can plan ahead and not have to worry about having it take over your life due to tracking or other types of weird eating patterns where you can only eat 1 meal in 8 hours and it has to be a 5,000 calorie meal. Just figure this stuff out before you start trying to use supplements to fill gaps.
I mean, as Marc said in the beginning, we're not selling hopes and dreams in a bottle. We really are. And for all 3 of us, people come to us all the time. What supplement stack should I take? you know, we could tell you a pretty awesome supplement stack, but you're not going to come back and continue to buy our products because, as you said, you know, if your diet and training is not in check, you know, they won't work, right? And so the first thing we talk to people about is, well, how's your diet and training? You know, so it's not just a supplement pitch for us. You know, we really want to see our customers get results, and to do that, you know, that's why we're here. We have to educate on other aspects, not just supplementation.
Yeah, and one thing we also get asked is, what are your top supplements? And we put that into two categories. Now, for sake of argument, you know, protein like Core Pro or Machine Whey, I consider that a food, but we'll just put that in the performance category. So we have the health and the performance. Yeah, love it. So we have the health and the performance category, right? So in the health category, we're pretty simple. We put together on accident because we all ended up taking it inadvertently as our morning stack. And machine greens and a multi, so a good greens and multi product, or let's just say a good multivitamin, just to cover those bases. A good fish oil. And for me, I put in NR. NR is an amazing product that Sean will go into. It's something that I swear by, that I've sworn by for a couple years already. So that's basically the health backbone. What we're looking for in a health stack. Am I missing one?
No,
That'll go into performance.
So performance, I mean, I think, you know, these are pretty easy for us. I mean, I think we all agree. You know, a good creatine. You know, creatine is one of the most studied and one of the safest products you can use. You know, all three of us, we really like creatine monohydrate. There are some other forms out there like creatine HCl and whatnot. But for us, you know, we really like the research and the results of creatine monohydrate. Branched chain amino acid, another one of the most studied products out there. Leucine is basically the anabolic signal in your body. You know, so we're a huge believer in BCAAs. I mean, shoot, Marc pretty much brought BCAAs to the market, or at least the mainstream. And then beta-alanine. You know, beta-alanine helps buffer lactic acid. You know, can help with endurance. Another really great studied and safe ingredient. You know, that, including you know, a whey protein, if you want to put that into like a performance category. Those are definitely the top products. You know, so something that you can get in like a pre-workout. Most of our pre-workouts have all of those things. Core ABC or Machine Fuel.
Yeah.
You know, for a BCA product, and then a good creatine. I mean, those are really the basics. I mean, there's definitely some other products out there that can work depending on where you are and kind of your training. But you know, we always come back to those basics.
So that moves to one thing that we've been asked a lot that we haven't addressed as part of the 10 Commandments yet, and that's how to look for good versus bad supplements. That's something that I want to touch on because we've been asked about it pretty repeatedly that we haven't covered here yet. And there's really three things that come to mind first. For me, and although there's many ways to look at supplements and evaluate them, the first one would be, are they made correctly? Are they made in a CGMP certified facility where the manufacturing protocols and procedures are correct? This is usually indicated on the label because companies who utilize this type of manufacturing are paying more for it, and they're going to tell you about it. That'd be a really, really good thing. It'd be like leaving off your degree on your resume. You wouldn't do that. It wouldn't make sense. You would put it on there. So that's the first thing. The second is having ingredient panels that are more or less fully disclosed, that list ingredients that, you know, make sense, that you can run a Google search on and see information about, not crazy Latin names, not things that are meant to be confusing, chemical derivatives, things like that are meant to really confuse you and make you feel like the product's more than it is. A panel like that. And the third is literally like the transparency top to bottom in the company. Do you know who operates the company, or are they some figure that you've never even actually seen, and the company really operates with a basis of a face of a sponsored athlete, someone that can come in and out, that really has no idea, say, or input on what happens with the products? Right here is the top of the food chain, like we've said, for our companies. Everything that happens in our companies, we're aware of and directing. That's why we're here, because we want to answer questions directly. We put and control every single thing that goes into all of our products. We have help with different things like graphic design and flavoring and whatever, but we make every decision at the end of the day. When you have someone like, you know, just for Nate, because he's come up, like Steve Cook, he doesn't have any input on what goes in the product.
What?
Yeah, he probably doesn't even use any of the products. I'll be honest with you. So it's not the same as talking to us. I'm going to be honest with you. That person may have, or any sponsored athlete may have a lot of character traits that are great that you admire, but they're really not the one to be telling you about the company. They don't even know.
mean, as we said earlier, you know, we design all our products very selfishly. You know, I mean, we want these products to use. We use all of our products. We use all of each other's products. And, you know, you're not going to get the CEO of some of these other companies, you know, saying that to you at all. I mean, they probably don't even lift.
You know, it's,
you know?
and I hate to pick on Optimum, but I actually get this question a lot. It's like, because we've moved up in the protein game, we're number 3. It's Optimum, Dymatize, and us. And Dymatize, thank God, they got popped for salmonella poisoning. So we moved up a little bit, you know? Not thank God, because I'm sure a couple people probably got sick. But it's all worth, no, I'm just kidding. No, but, you know, people say, well, why should I buy your brand over Optimum? And Optimum's a great quality product. It's every time I've tested it comes out. I can't tell you what companies don't test out because I've tested them. And I guarantee you about 80% of the protein supplements on the market don't test out. Great product. Flavor was great in 1995. I'd kill them on flavor. Go try it yourself. Hell, mix up an Optimum shake. Let's do a side by side. I don't give a shit. I will crush them in flavors. No offense, Doug.
I'll license it.
Yeah, you licensed for that saying.
That's not that he would crush me in flavoring, just to be clear. It was that he was using my trademark. Just to clear that.
Yes. Is trademark issue. But the one thing I say is, so we're even there, so we might be, you know, 10% give or take, depending what country you're in, and distribution and price. But who's the CEO of Optimum Nutrition? Anybody? Exactly. So that's one thing that we can say, and it's not dogging them, but they're just, honestly, they're my goal. I'm taking them down, and I'm here to do that face to face with you in the gym. Here, we're transparent. Here we are, and that's the beautiful thing about what we do. We all 3 stand behind all of our products. Like, I stand behind Sean's, you know, I stand behind Doug's, and we all mix you'll see us pre-workout. We created a great stack. His protein and my protein, his peanut butter and my mint. It's the great, see, you don't believe it, it's the greatest thing ever. It's seriously, I got pregnant, it was so good. I have no clue what that meant. But unless you guys have something to add, this actually moves in perfectly to training. I mean, we've gone into intensity of training, we've gone into the whole mindset, the crushing it, Dorian Yates, you know, the it's not a game thing. But what should you base your training around? And you read a lot of these magazines, I don't do deadlifts because they're so dangerous, or squats are this, squats are dangerous, and blah, blah, blah. That's all bullshit. If done correctly, they're actually very rehabilitative. They're actually very structurally healthy for you to do. So in powerlifting, there's the big 3. But for the sake of what we do, which is total structural integrity and, you know, just building a good physique, at the same time building strength, I mean, those of you training tonight, you'll notice we're pretty friggin' strong. There's 4 lifts that we center everything around, that you build your program around. And that's a bench press, but it doesn't have to be bench press. It could be dumbbell press, it could be machine press, something where you're pushing the bar outward like this. You're good. Okay, another one would be deadlift, like Sean talked about earlier with his person he trained with. Deadlift, phenomenal lift, engages the core. Every part of your body is engaged. Focus your lifts around that. Squat, or a variation of the squat. You know, you got the goblet squat, you got a front squat. So again, the variation of the squat. And then an overhead press, either a standing shoulder press, dumbbell press, barbell press, machine press, one of those. And just because of the background of your lift, doesn't mean you have to do them first. Doug loves doing his major lifts last. I always do squats towards the end of my workout. Just incorporate those lifts into your training. So if you're structuring your workout, let's say you do legs on Monday, you know, do squats in that day. Then accessorize with leg press and, you know, extensions, all that. You know, let's say bench, you know, chest day is Tuesday. Make a bench press or a pressing motion, obviously you have to almost, a part of that. Then you got back day. Again, include deadlifts in that. Sean actually likes to do deadlifts apart from back day. He does on hamstring day, I believe. And then, of course, an overhead pressing motion. So those are the core 4 movements that you should base your entire program design around.
So one other thing I'd like to add here, and this isn't necessarily in our commandments, but over the past couple of times we've done this question has come up later on, and that's not just what are the main core things that you need to be doing inside the gym, but a lot of people ask us, well, what are the main things that you're doing outside of the gym to stay healthy? And all 3 of us are very active in, you know, staying and maintaining healthy. A lot of people, you know, will say, well, what do you do when you get injured? Well, like, or what if you do if you feel off? Well, you still go to the gym. You find a way to move around it. And in fact, like if you hurt your back, unless it's extremely serious, you know, movement back in it is a good thing. And related to that is like we all do different types of therapy. I do active release therapy, which is a type of kind of deep tissue trigger pointing twice a week. I go to Thai massage every other week. I foam roll. I use a PVC, or not a foam roll, a PVC pipe roll. I use a lacrosse ball. Sean does it, every morning. I do it around my workout. Marc does myofascial release. So those are the main things that you also have to be doing. You have to keep up with your ability to function and move outside of the gym as well, so that your performance in the gym is good.
Before we move on to the next commandment, Marc kind of touched on it, but one thing that I like to mention is that with all these core movements, there are multiple different variations of them, to where if one hurts you, I don't want to hear that you can't do that movement because one version of it hurts you. If you don't do well with the barbell bench press, that doesn't excuse you from being able to press a weight, from a lying position. Same thing from an overhead press. If you can't reach over your head and lift something up, you're not in a good spot as a human. And if you can't squat, if you can't bend down like this, you're not in a good spot as a human. These are all things that are fundamental. So if you can't do the barbell version of it, then do the dumbbell version. If you can't do that, do a body weight version, do a banded version, do the goblet squat. There's so many variations, and even if you're in the worst possible case, where your stabilizers are totally shot and you need to rebuild from the ground up, there's Smith machine variations of all these too. So there's no excuse to not perform these movements and build back up to full strength, because we think through all these, through the overhead press, through the flat press, through the deadlift, and through the squat. These are probably the most essential motions that you're going to go through in life in one way, shape, or form. You need to be able to perform them. So find the variation, even if it's a regression, that works for you.
I'm going to add to this. Squatting, for example, is a primal movement. You're meant to do it. If you go to a third world country, they don't sit down, they squat. They don't have toilets, they squat and they shit. All right, that's a primal movement. If you can't squat, there's something very wrong with your body. So just focus on that. Again, the reason we can't do those movements is because we sit in desks, we do things our bodies aren't meant to do. So again, use that as a way, as almost rehabilitation, rather than looking at it as a dangerous movement. And that comes with learning form and all that good stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into later.
So number 7, there is no off season. You really can't be a part-time bodybuilder. I have people coming to me all the time, I want to do a competition in 12 weeks. I'm like, okay, so, how long have you been training? How was your last growth season? And they're like, well, I started back up 2 weeks ago. Well, that doesn't cut it. You don't make progress as you're dieting down and your calories are restricted. The idea when you're getting ready for a competition, or you're trying to lean out if you're not a competitor, is to maintain all the muscle that you built in a growth season. You're not going to be putting on muscle when you're in a calorie deficit, unless you're using a lot of drugs. So, you can't just be a part-time bodybuilder. You really need to focus on growth during a season when, your calories can be at or above maintenance.
Yeah, which, going into that, you look at the whole, there is no off season. At the same time, we also need to strive for balance in all areas of life. And these tie in well together, because a lot of people will get ready for shows and they'll completely screw their lives. And I think all of us have seen marriage broken up, we've seen relationships, families, I had to fire someone from a job once because he wasn't performing because of contest prep. At the end of the day, you're never going to make money with your body, unless of course you're a stripper or you do G for P. So at the end of the day, you need to realize that bodybuilding should be incorporated. Bodybuilding, I'm going to say bodybuilding to encompass all forms of physique enhancement or fitness. It should enhance and not take over your life. So when looking at designing things, you have to realize that you have business, you have family, you have friendships, and then you have bodybuilding. And bodybuilding, while it is a 24/7 job, you always have to eat, you always have to train, and there is no off season, you have to find a way to incorporate that into your entire life. And I'm gonna actually pass this over to Doug, because he actually, both of us, we're married, we have kids. Sean has many children, he just doesn't pay child support. So, Doug actually has dealt with this.
Competition prep is so important. And again, I have people contacting me all the time, and I would say 4 out of 5 people that contact me, I will talk them out of competing. And that's because they're not in the right place emotionally, financially, with their job, with their relationship. And it's so important to get those things, in place first. And the biggest thing you got to do is, like, we had somebody in a seminar the other night say, man, my girl, she just doesn't support me with this. And, to be honest with you, he's probably being a big dick, during the the competition prep. And, you got to realize that when you're getting down ready for a show at the end, or really lean, just trying to lean up, you're gonna be, when you're hungry, you're gonna be kind of miserable. So you gotta be really conscious and think about those things. And also you gotta communicate. I know this is kind of a cliche, but like, communication is so important. So if you have a spouse who's not into, crushing it in the gym all the time, and you're putting a lot of time in the gym, you got to make sure that you also set aside that QT for them as well, because otherwise it's not going to last. And I've seen it so many times. I've had multiple clients that have gone through divorces and crazy stuff, giving away, something that they've built over a decade for a stupid, competition to win a local trophy. So, you really got to have, balance, and you got to make bodybuilding, something that enhances your life and doesn't take away from those other aspects. And you totally can if you plan and do other things and communicate well.
That goes on to commandment number 9, which is to bring the ruckus.
TM.
And
Wu-Tang Clan.
what we mean by that specifically is another TM, Eric Thomas, go 120. With everything that you do, with all of your pursuits, not just your physical form, not just your physique and your training and your nutrition, but your work, your personal life, your family life, your spirituality, whatever you pursue, go 120. Give it everything. Try and progress and develop and build more on everything that you do. You may be great at something, and that's awesome, but it doesn't mean you can't be better. And you may be mediocre at other things that you're neglecting by choice or by default or by lack of awareness. But find these things and improve them. Shore up all your deficiencies and approach them all with the same tenacity you do with your strengths. Everyone loves to train their strongest body part, for example, but hardly anyone likes training their calves, me included. You know what I mean? So you have to find these weaknesses and you have to attack them ferociously, and you have to work to improve them. For us, it's not necessarily training and nutrition, it's trying to be better bosses, trying to be, better husbands or boyfriends or whatever, like trying to just constantly search and seek out things that can make us better and attacking them, and not putting any limits on how far we can go and how much effort we can put in.
So that brings us to the 10th commandment, grind. And what I mean by that is this is a marathon, not a sprint. I've been doing this now. I've been training hard for 18, 19 years. I track everything in those little fat notebooks. I can stack them up back to when I was 17, which is 19 years ago, and it's like this high. And it was slow and steady progress. In the beginning you might gain like this, but then it's slow and steady. And so this is something that you want to challenge yourself. You want to compare yourself to yourself. There's so much bullshit on Instagram and social media where everyone's comparing themselves to everyone else, and so they're looking for quick fixes. I don't want this to be a public service announcement. Don't do drugs, stay in school, that type of thing. But really, don't do drugs, stay in school. We see people, at the Arnold the other day. Somebody comes up to me. I mean, he looked like he didn't even lift. He told me he was lifting for 4 years. He was 19 years.
Really bad 4 years.
He was 19 years old. He's like, so I'm thinking of doing this cycle, and then maybe I'm going to bulk up, and I'm going to be on the Olympia stage. Like he was convinced he was going to be on the Olympia stage. So,
yeah.
I mean, God bless him. I mean, I guess he was really focused on this, but I straight up told him, "You're an idiot. You'll never be on the Olympia stage, no matter how many drugs you take. I can look at you right now and tell you that." And I'm like, in fact, let's go talk to Marc. Because I want him to be.
He got done insulting him, so he brought him to the king of insulting people.
Yeah.
And this kid literally, and Doug's like, just hear him out. So he repeated the same thing, and without knowing what Doug said, I'm like, look, you can, after 4 years, I'm sure Phil Heath after about 4 days knew, okay, I got something magical here, right? This kid's not going to be on the Olympia stage. I hate to be honest, but he's lucky to place 7th in a show with 8 people, regionally, like Mr. Tasmania or something, right? And but it was funny because no matter how much we were saying exactly what we're saying here, obviously in more condensed because we almost had to insult. He would not listen because we started out like, well, you know, start here. No, I'm going to be on the Olympia stage. And this kid literally at 19 was looking to throw a chemical warfare at his body and looking for a shortcut. And at the end of the day, the thing that got me and Doug most is once we pried more, and keep in mind, there's a line of people waiting for us. So we literally made, this was important for us to address this, and we literally made people wait, and we found out he didn't even really know his training, and he didn't really track his diet, so he had no fucking idea. So he's looking to do this shortcut before he's even shored up the basic principles and essentials of making gains.
Yeah, I mean, he should have listened to, he didn't even listen to any of the first 9 commandments. I mean, he was just like, he was a lost cause. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, this really is a marathon. So be patient, you know, be consistent with it, and you will see results. Sometimes it can be tough. You might not think you're looking in the mirror every day. You might not think you're making, you know, gains. But if you're consistent with, you know, those principles that we just laid out, I mean, you will make gains.
And the thing is, Sean's been at this over 10 years. Doug and me have been training over 20 years. And this is years and years of just cumulative stress and adaptation and growth. And we have been, when I say 20 years, I may have taken 3 days. I don't think I've taken a week off. And I'm not saying you don't need rest weeks and you can't go on vacation. But I mean, we've literally lived nearly perfect diet and training situations, as close to perfect as one can be, while living normal lives. And again, like those of you, like, you know, we spent all this time on the road with Joel, with Joe, and they're, I mean, we live this lifestyle. For us, this is a lifestyle. So, you know, it's a marathon, and be willing to put in work. And nothing worth having is easy, you know.